Archaeologists in Jerusalem have discovered a series of mysterious underground rooms near where the second Jewish temple is believed to have stood about 2,000 years ago. The purpose of the chambers still unknown.
Deep beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, archaeologists using advanced technology revealed secret scrolls inside sealed chambers carved into solid bedrock thousands of years ago, but authorities immediately restricted the site. What could be so dangerous about the discovery beneath the Temple Mount? And why is this secret appearing right now, after remaining hidden for centuries? Join us as we uncover what archaeologists found beneath the Temple Mount, and why their refusal to open these secret chambers might change everything we thought we knew about ancient mysteries and biblical prophecy. The discovery. What technology revealed without disturbing the ground? Something extraordinary happened beneath the Temple Mount without moving a single grain of soil. But first, understand the broader context. In recent months, financial systems failed in synchronized patterns. Regional leadership structures experienced disruptions that seemed unrelated on the surface, yet their timing aligned with disturbing precision. This was pressure building across multiple systems. The biblical text from Haggai chapter 2 speaks about shaking all nations. The shaking comes before disclosure, not chaos. Against this backdrop, scientists conducted non-invasive surveys beneath the Temple Mount, using just ground-penetrating radar combined with artificial intelligence pattern analysis. No excavation occurred. What surfaced was information, not access. The scans revealed sealed subsurface structures with unusual clarity. These were enclosed chambers deliberately isolated from everything around them. The geometry was consistent throughout. Internal boundaries didn't match natural rock formations or any known construction from surface-level historical periods. These structures were carved directly into bedrock, showing angles that were clearly deliberate and distances precisely measured, exceeding what archaeologists see in surrounding layers above ground. The chambers appeared completely enclosed. Radar detected no access routes whatsoever. No shafts, no corridors, no signs of collapse or later sealing. They were built as closed systems from the beginning. Someone created these spaces, completed them, then ensured nobody could easily enter them again. What technology revealed inside raised even more questions. Radar signatures showed stone basins fixed permanently in place, positioned with intention. Metallic residues were present. Lead and mercury traces appeared in patterns, suggesting careful placement. Historically, these materials appeared in contexts involving restriction, containment, and separation. None of this aligned with worship spaces, storage rooms, or drainage systems. The design pointed toward controlled environments. Chronological analysis placed these chambers earlier than Second Temple expansions. Construction happened before large-scale public worship infrastructure was established on the surface, placing original intent completely outside normal ceremonial flow. Isaiah states, "God declares the end from the beginning. Some things are prepared early, then deliberately hidden. The moment detection was confirmed, the site was restricted. Information flow narrowed immediately. Oversight shifted to a very small circle of authorities. No official announcement about opening the chambers was made. Song of Songs instructs not to stir or awaken something until it desires to be awakened. Delay isn't denial, but containment operating according to a timeline that hasn't fully matured. The absence of access carries as much significance as the presence of structure. These chambers weren't designed for repeated entry. They were sealed with permanence as the primary design goal, reflecting incredible foresight. Revelation instructs to seal up what the seven thunders have spoken. Sealed doesn't mean forgotten, but reserved for a specific moment that hasn't arrived yet. This discovery didn't emerge from excavation agendas or religious movements, but because technology reached a specific threshold. Artificial intelligence advanced to where pattern recognition could distinguish intentional voids from geological noise. The ground didn't change. Human ability to read it did. Luke notes nothing remains hidden that won't eventually be disclosed. Disclosure doesn't always require disturbance, sometimes just discernment, applied at the right moment. What becomes clear when examining how these chambers were built is that whoever created them never intended anyone to use them casually or repeatedly. The design tells a story of permanent isolation, and the materials inside suggest something far more deliberate than simple storage or worship. Design intent, and the pattern of permanent sealing. When archaeologists examine ancient structures, they look for signs of human activity over time. Wear patterns on floors show where people walked repeatedly. Modified walls indicate later generations adapted spaces for different uses. Tool marks reveal ongoing maintenance or expansion. These chambers beneath the Temple Mount show none of that. The floors are smooth without the kind of erosion that comes from foot traffic. The walls show no alterations or additions from later periods. Everything about these spaces screams one clear message. They were built once, sealed immediately, and never touched again. These chambers remained pristine after centuries because they were designed for permanence from the very beginning. Someone invested enormous effort to ensure these spaces would remain exactly as constructed for thousands of years. That level of intentionality requires serious planning and resources. You don't accidentally create structures that survive millennia without maintenance. The architectural choices reinforce this conclusion at every level. These chambers aren't connected to anything else underground. They don't support the structural weight of buildings above them. They exist in complete isolation. Ancient builders typically integrated underground spaces into larger functional systems like cisterns connected to channels that collected rainwater. These chambers reject that entire logic. Isolation was the whole point. Think about what that means practically. Ancient containment practices across the Near East frequently relied on separation to prevent unwanted interaction between dangerous materials and everyday life. The Levitical laws in Scripture constantly emphasize setting things apart. Certain substances, objects, or even concepts required physical separation to maintain order and safety. These chambers embody that principle in stone and design. The materials found inside tell the same story from a different angle. Lead and heavy metallic residues acted as barriers, suppressing interaction and marking clear boundaries. These weren't decorative choices or convenient materials that happened to be nearby. Nobody designs systems like this for items meant to circulate publicly or be accessed casually. The inscriptions discovered along the interior surfaces contain repetitive guarding language. The phrasing is limited, formulaic, and directive. This isn't poetry or historical narrative or religious celebration, it's instruction. Boundaries established through words carved in stone. Genesis describes cherubim placed to guard a specific way. That guarding doesn't imply hostility toward humanity. It implies assignment, duty, protection of something that must remain separated until the right time arrives. When you step back and look at all these elements together, a clear pattern emerges. Something was identified as requiring separation from normal human activity. It was contained with extraordinary care. It was guarded without public announcement. It was preserved without any intention of use. That specific combination is remarkably rare in archaeology. Most ancient structures served immediate practical purposes. Temples facilitated worship. Palaces housed rulers. Fortifications protected populations. Storage facilities held goods for trade or survival. These chambers served none of those functions. They existed to keep something isolated across an unimaginable span of time. This suggests the builders understood they were managing something that future generations would eventually need to address, but only when conditions were right. The fact that these chambers have now become detectable raises an obvious question. What shifted to make visibility possible now, and what does that timing mean for whatever still waits inside, sealed and untouched? Official response and the biblical framework for confinement. The response to this discovery was immediate and controlled. Within hours of confirming what the scans revealed, Authorities restricted the entire site. No press conferences announced plans to open the chambers or investigate further. The world expected excitement and urgent action. Instead, silence settled over everything like a heavy blanket. This wasn't panic or confusion, it was procedure. When something this significant appears before anyone is ready to handle it properly, the appropriate response is restraint. This pattern appears throughout Scripture with remarkable consistency. The biblical text doesn't treat confinement as unusual or exceptional. It presents it as standard procedure when dealing with destabilizing forces. Genesis records disruption in the early world, followed by divine restraint and judgment, but not immediate eradication. The text mentions the Nephilim being on the earth, then moves forward without elaborate explanation. What mattered wasn't public understanding, but correction through proper order. Judgment followed structure, not panic. Peter and Jude both reference beings kept in chains until judgment. These aren't symbolic metaphors or poetic language. They describe actual status: held, restricted, awaiting final resolution. Scripture treats confinement as an active state of governance exercised across time. Disruption happens, authority responds, containment gets imposed, and resolution gets deferred until the appointed moment. This is order, not secrecy. The biblical record shows no urgency to explain these events to broader populations. Revelation is measured and controlled. Disclosure follows readiness, not curiosity. Scripture doesn't invite speculation or imagination about what's confined or why. It simply establishes precedent so readers recognize the pattern when it appears in real history. Moses was hidden before he could lead. The ark was concealed before its return. Jesus withdrew repeatedly before public ministry, stating clearly that his hour had not yet come. Every single time, timing governed exposure. Exposure never governed timing. Scripture separates seeing from taking, revelation from action, awareness from access. And now that pattern appears again in a discovery that cannot be unsealed, but can no longer be ignored. The question becomes, if biblical history shows that sealed things eventually open, what historical patterns suggest the timing might finally be approaching? Historical patterns of dangerous knowledge and enduring structures. Throughout the ancient Near East, a consistent pattern appears in how societies handled dangerous knowledge, unstable objects, or unresolved matters. They didn't destroy them. They sealed them and removed them from public systems entirely. This wasn't ignorance or primitive superstition, it was deliberate strategy. Forgetting was the goal, not a side effect. Over centuries and millennia, memory faded naturally, but the structures themselves remained intact underground, waiting. The Psalms reference this principle indirectly when speaking about the stone the builders rejected. Rejection doesn't equal removal. Something can be set aside, deemed unsuitable for current use, yet remain physically present and structurally sound. That's exactly what these chambers represent. They weren't demolished or allowed to collapse. They were completed with care, then deliberately excluded from the active systems developing above ground. What makes these particular chambers remarkable is their endurance. They remained sealed through the rise and fall of empires. Crusaders fought bloody wars directly above these chambers. The Ottoman Empire controlled the area for centuries. Through all of that upheaval, through every language shift and political realignment, these underground spaces remained untouched and unknown. That kind of survival doesn't happen by accident. The original design anticipated massive instability on the surface. These chambers were anchored in bedrock, isolated from everything that could be destroyed or modified by human conflict above. The builders understood that surface-level civilization was temporary and fragile. Whatever they placed in these chambers required protection that outlasted nations. Sometimes the evidence speaks for itself through patterns in rock and soil. Discussions around Third Temple frameworks have also resurfaced after decades of dormancy. These conversations remain fragmented and deeply divided. No unified plan exists. No agreed timeline has emerged. Major stakeholders can't even reach consensus on basic questions. Yet the subject refuses to disappear. It persists in academic papers, religious discourse, political debates, and architectural speculation. Persistence without resolution indicates pressure accumulating beneath surface-level disagreement. Scripture shows that preparation frequently precedes understanding by generations. 1 Chronicles records that David gathered materials and made plans long before his son Solomon could begin actual construction. Action followed readiness, not debate. Technology represents the final converging line. The capacity to reveal sealed history without physically disturbing it has accelerated at an exponential rate. Artificial intelligence-assisted analysis, combined with deep ground imaging and advanced pattern recognition, has fundamentally changed what humans can know without touching. This alteration in capability changes everything about sequence. These four elements are moving together now: heightened attention, increased inquiry, fragmented preparation, and expanded technological capability. None of them alone completes any process or triggers any specific outcome, but together they form a recognizable structure of approach. Events align quietly across different spheres, then suddenly the shift becomes unavoidable. Habakkuk declares that everything waits for the appointed time. Timing governs manifestation. Manifestation never governs timing. Jesus spoke about signs that would be noticed only by those actively watching. Matthew records this teaching clearly. Awareness becomes selective during these transitional periods. The broader world remains engaged with immediate concerns, daily survival, political theatre, and entertainment. Meanwhile, independent developments from completely separate domains begin pointing toward the same narrow focal area. Not through conspiracy or coordination, but through sequence and pattern. This suggests a specific stage has been reached where concealment technically remains intact, but ignorance no longer functions as a viable position. Something is becoming unavoidable to those positioned to recognize it, and the question is no longer whether events are unfolding, but whether observers possess the readiness to interpret what's already visible, why this timing matters, and what awareness without access means. These chambers weren't identified during antiquity, when regional powers had unrestricted access to the Temple Mount. They weren't discovered during the Crusades, when European armies controlled Jerusalem and destruction preceded understanding. They weren't found during early modern archaeology, when excavation automatically meant exposure and removal. The absence across all those periods wasn't accidental. The conditions were fundamentally wrong. Technology hadn't matured. Methods remained invasive. Cultural approaches treated ancient sites as resources to extract rather than records to read carefully. This discovery appears now at a precise moment when sealed history can be observed without being opened. Detection without disturbance has finally become possible. Containment can be confirmed without violation. Scripture consistently separates seeing from taking. Moses was shown the promised land before entering it. Deuteronomy records this clearly. Vision preceded physical movement. Amos states the Lord reveals his plans before acting on them. Seeing establishes accountability. Once something becomes visible, ignorance ends immediately. Responsibility begins at the moment of awareness. This explains why timing matters more than content. What gets revealed early shapes how later steps unfold. John recorded what he saw in Revelation while seals remained unbroken. His observation didn't equal activation. The act of seeing simply prepared the sequence. Scripture demonstrates repeatedly that premature access leads to disorder. Proper timing preserves order. This present moment aligns perfectly with that pattern. The chambers remain sealed. No permission has been granted to open them. No official claims have been made about contents. Yet awareness has entered the historical record permanently. That shift cannot be reversed. Once a structure gets detected, it cannot return to obscurity. The ground hasn't changed. Human position relative to hidden knowledge has changed completely. Timing also filters motive. When discovery requires force, competing motives create chaos. When discovery occurs through restraint, motives get tested. Jesus withdrew from crowds when pressure rose. John records these intentional delays. Delays clarified purpose. Those truly aligned remained, others dispersed. Present timing avoids spectacle. There's no immediate demand, no public pressure. This keeps interpretation from racing ahead of divine order. Scripture warns that haste produces error. Saul acted before receiving full instruction and lost his authority permanently. 1 Samuel records this lesson. Waiting preserves proper alignment. This current moment is defined by waiting. Isaiah notes certain things are kept for many days. That phrase signals delay spanning lifetimes. Relevance isn't to those who sealed these chambers, but to those positioned to recognize them later. Daniel instructs understanding comes to the one who has understanding. Recognition isn't distributed evenly. Understanding arrives only when capacity exists. Technology plays a supporting role, but isn't the primary driver. Tools mature when timing allows. Ecclesiastes teaches everything has a season. Capability without correct season produces misuse. Season without capability produces frustration. Both have now aligned simultaneously for the first time. This timing doesn't announce final outcome. It signals transition from ignorance to awareness. That shift alters trajectory permanently. Decisions made from ignorance differ fundamentally from decisions made with knowledge. Luke records that to whom much is given, much will be required. Responsibility follows awareness automatically. The sealed remains sealed. The unseen remains unseen physically. Yet something crucial has crossed from hidden to known. The world continues without noticing. That doesn't negate reality. Scripture records many moments where reality changed before perception caught up. This appears to be another such moment. Awareness has advanced while access has not. That gap between knowing and touching matters enormously because it creates space where choice still exists, where response can be measured, where wisdom can be applied before irreversible action gets taken. But that space won't remain open indefinitely, and every converging pattern suggests the window is narrowing faster than anyone publicly acknowledges. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.